There are moments when the desire to give up does not come loudly or dramatically. It arrives quietly, heavy, almost polite, like an invisible weight pressing on the soul. It shows up as an exhaustion that cannot be explained, as if something inside were whispering, "Enough." Not every crisis announces itself with chaos. Sometimes it comes disguised as numbness, as the feeling that the fire once burning in the heart has slowly turned into cold ashes. And in that place, a dangerous question is born. One few dare to admit out loud, is it still worth continuing? Is it still worth following Jesus when reality seems to contradict everything that was once promised? Those who are listening are not searching for a sermon or for answers wrapped in religious language. They are searching for rest. They are searching for meaning. The heart is tired, perhaps silently, perhaps screaming inwardly, but it is reaching out. That is why these words do not come as pressure, but as presence. Like someone who sits beside you in the dark and stays, without explanations, without hurry, simply remaining. There is a kind of exhaustion, almost never spoken about, the weariness of faith. It is not the absence of belief, but the weight of believing for too long without visible answers. It is when prayer feels like pushing a stone uphill, when worship becomes mechanical, when scripture sounds distant, as if the words no longer reach the heart. And inevitably the question rises. Is God still listening? Is He still here? Or has this journey become lonely? This experience is far more common than most admit. Spiritual life is not a straight line upward. It moves through valleys, deserts, and long nights without stars. There are seasons when the sky feels closed and the silence of God becomes almost unbearable. That silence hurts, sometimes more than hard answers would. Yet this truth must be held firmly. Silence is not absence. God's quietness is not abandonment. In many cases, it is the space where His presence is deepest. True faith learns to live with tension. It learns to believe without seeing, to wait when nothing changes, to love even when it feels nothing. This is often the point where people consider walking away, believing distance will bring relief, rest, freedom. What they do not realize is that what begins as a pause frequently turns into separation, and what seemed like relief slowly becomes emptiness, not because they left religion, but because they stepped away from the source of life. There is a subtle but dangerous difference between resting and abandoning. First, prayer becomes quieter. Then scripture is avoided. Soon, absences become normal, until one day the heart feels distant and the longing for God is barely recognizable. Yet if longing still exists, it is because love still remains. And where there is love, hope is not gone. Remaining when leaving would be easier is a deeply spiritual act. Faith is not measured by emotional highs, but by quiet perseverance in difficult seasons. The great men and women of Scripture knew this place well. Elijah asked for death after witnessing fire fall from heaven. Jeremiah cursed the day he was born. David wept until he had no strength left. None of them were rejected. None of their stories ended in the valley. Jesus never promised ease. He never guaranteed comfort. What He promised was presence, faithful, sustaining presence. The mistake is believing that love always feels gentle. God does not remove all suffering, but He remains within it. Perhaps you believe you have disappointed Him, but He was never surprised by human weakness. He knew every fall before it happened and still chose to love, still chose to call you by name. His love is not directed toward an ideal version of you, but toward the real one, tired, confused, imperfect, exactly as you are now. The strength to continue has never come from within. It has always come from Him. The problem is that when strength is no longer felt, we assume it no longer exists. But God's presence is not an emotion. It is like air, often unnoticed, yet essential for life. Perhaps the weight you carry is not entirely yours. Old guilt, expectations, fear of failure. Jesus never asked anyone to bear these alone. His invitation remains unchanged. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Not later, not when you are stronger. Now, God specializes in new beginnings. He restores what seems finished and lights lamps in the longest nights. Peter denied Jesus and thought everything was over. But Jesus went to him not to accuse, but to restore. There was still purpose. Still calling. There is something sacred about holding God's hand when the desire is to let go. Silent perseverance is still faith. Maybe this is not the season for big prayers, but for a simple whisper. I am still here, and that is enough. Security was never in the strength of the one holding on, but in the faithfulness of the one who never lets go. Like a father crossing a busy street with a child, safety is not in the small hand, but in the strong one. Jesus does not call us back to performance, but to an embraced one that requires no explanations and no preparation. Perhaps today is not about seeing the whole road, but only the next step. Grace is given daily, not all at once, and choosing to remain, even tired and uncertain, may seem small, but it is there that God begins to write new chapters. Whoever hears this is not alone, not forgotten, not beyond grace. Where the love of God still pulses, even faintly hope remains. And that hope is enough to keep going today. I hope to meet you on that great day. May God continue to bless you. With brotherly love, Minutes of Grace.